Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of The Expendable Show. I told you I was going to get back on track. So I'm here. It's Wednesday. I know I said I was thinking about moving to Thursday, but Wednesday, I might have Wednesdays. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm here today. And we have some big news to cover today. Actually, it's kind of put a burr in my rear. I've been ranting and raving about it all day. I had to call my dad, and we ranted and raved together. Sometimes we don't agree on things, but we agreed on this one. So if you like my show, like, subscribe, and ding the bell. That's how the channel grows. And quick update. We'll give you a quick update. My series on the corruption in Kentucky, specifically London, Kentucky, has been drawing more and more interest. You can actually look up my work through Microsoft Pilot. I'm being tracked by the AI system now. So that's exciting. Although the AI system's super liberal, but they're covering what I'm doing. I also have been granted an interview on a podcast out of Kentucky to talk about my work that I've done there. You will not believe the things that I found out about this little community. This is about 8,000-9,000 people there, and in the town of London, and which is about the size of the town that I came from in Ohio. So I feel like when I go there, I can relate a lot to it because we have a lot of these same issues back home where I'm from. And the same old good old boys system, the same old, let's keep the super outside influences out because they'll screw up our hustles kind of thing. A lot of that goes on there. And so I've been making a lot of progress with that. And the community of London has been fantastic. They have helped out so much. They provide me with information. Like I just checked my phone before the podcast, cleared everything out, got all the information people left. By the time the show's over, I'll have over 100 more messages of people offering tips. It's all day long. It's become like a full-time job to do this. I've put a lot of hours into it, which is fine because it's ultimately going to get the job done that I'm trying to get done, my little agenda that I have. So it's starting to become a little dangerous as well. I do get some threats, and they told me to just pull up. So I did. And then I made a video right in front of the mayor's office. I don't think he liked that too much, but whatever. That's what I do. That's why I can't ever stay married, because I antagonize my wives too much and then they don't like me anymore. So I was made for this. I'm going to antagonize people. The bad people. See, I'm not the type of guy. I don't like to bully people unless they are bullies. So I target bullies, and then I go bully them. And so that's the fun. That's the fun in it for me. And they've got some big bullies in London, let me tell you. So enough of that. I do have some other opportunities that are coming up. That one of them could be a major thing that I've just been made aware of today. It just seems like every time I turn around, people are offering me things now. So maybe I'm getting famous. I don't know. I might be famous now. I'm not sure. But I do have one of the faster growing TikToks on the internet now. It's really weird. It's really weird to have like people like going and looking for me on my pages. But let's go through our statistics. We'll get into the show today. So Doge, they haven't changed anything. We're still at 190 billion, which is $1,180.12. The debt clock is showing 549 billion, which is 4,889. Now, since Elon's left, that has significantly slowed down. But like we've talked about on almost every show since, is that if Congress isn't going to codify the cuts, then everything Elon did was for nothing. And I think that's why he's bitter, because he put a lot of time and effort into it, created an entire system to help audit, and they didn't accept it. Congress was a complete failure. So on both sides, Republicans and Democrats both failed Congress, failed the American people on those cuts. Gas in 2024, Joe Biden's gas price was $3.30 a gallon on average. Today we are at $3.16. So it went up a couple pennies. We'll see what happens. It seems to be fluctuating like right around that 214 to 217 mark all the time. I'd like to see it go down a little bit more, but this is still, we have better gas than the Biden administration. It's $2.56 a gallon in Locust Grove. So I like that. Now the mortgage rates. I about had a heart attack when I looked this up today. 2024 mortgage rates, 6.7%. Today, we have 6.625. Has Jerome Powell turned a new leaf? Finally, we're below Biden's average. We should have done, but we should be in the fives right now. And that's being real. We should be in the 5% right now. And I think Jerome Powell's at that point where he don't have a choice. You can't keep a 7% interest rate when we have a building economy. That's him just being ignorant and stupid. So finally, he's starting to trend us into a more positive mortgage rate. So hopefully that keeps going. It'd be nice to see that drop. I know a lot of my finances depend on that. So I'm waiting on things to adjust so I can start making some moves and make my life a little cheaper. Trump's approval rating's been hovering in the 46 percentile range. He's at 46.4. So he's kind of sitting right there. I think today's news is not going to help him. So as many of you know, and I'm going to start out this is pretty much going to take up the rest of our segment. So I'm going to tell you, as most of you know that watch my show, is I am a supporter of Donald Trump. I voted for him 3 times. I generally understand that Donald Trump has more information than what I have. So when he does something, I generally just sit back and say, okay, I trust my president to do what's right. And 99.99% of the time, I get that result that I want. However, there are times when I think that it's wrong. Now, for what happened today, I can't blame President Trump. And I'll tell you why. Because with the Epstein list now all of a sudden never existed, according to Pam Bondi. I'm caught wondering, did President Trump know that this was going to happen, that Pam Bondi was going to make this announcement? Or has President Trump been so consumed with solving international problems that some things got missed? And I can understand that. There's so many fires in the world that President Trump is in the middle of trying to extinguish that, when the cat's away, the mice will play. I feel like that's what's happened. I don't know for sure. So let's get into the information and try to make some sense of it, because I've been looking at it and I'm not sure. So if any of you guys have any comments for me on this, I would be greatly appreciated. So let's talk about the Epstein list. So Attorney General Pam Bondi is facing a lot of scrutiny. MAGA wants her gone. For remarks she made this year about Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking case after the Department of Justice and FBI brought their Epstein inquiry to an abrupt close over the weekend. So the specifics of what she said are important. So I'm going to make sure I get those right when we get to that point. So the White House was grilled by reporters yesterday on Monday, or 2 days ago, Monday, about Bondi's remarks, which appeared to contradict a memo that the Department of Justice and FBI released earlier in the day, stating that their Epstein review was complete and that they had nothing further to share with the public about it. I don't believe that at all. I think anything. I've been very critical of Pam Bondi in the last couple months, and I think anybody who watches my TikToks, I've made entire TikToks about how displeased I am with Pam Bondi. I've talked about it on this show many times. So to come out and say, after building this up since she became Attorney General, how I've got all this information on my desk, like 1,900 pages of stuff on my desk, and then you come out today and say, nothing to see here, move along. I don't accept that. I don't accept that. Now, she also said that Jeffrey Epstein did commit suicide. I don't accept that coming out of her mouth. Now, if she had come out and said, look, we're pretty sure there's something fishy that happened here, but the powers that be had a head start on us and had a few years to brush this under the rug. So we believe that there's something there. However, the evidence to prove it is gone. I could have bought that. I could have accepted that answer. Like, just tell me the truth. The evidence got destroyed and there's nothing left to look at in Epstein's death. I can accept that. That makes sense to me. But to come out after you've hyped up the Epstein client list this whole time and then to come out and say nothing, there's nothing left. I don't accept that. I don't accept it at all. So moving on. Peter Doocy for Fox News, he asked White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt about Bondi apparently confirming in February that a non-public list of Epstein's trafficking client list existed. So she's admitted already in February that this list existed. I can't even say it. Existed. She was saying and this is Caroline Leavitt responding. She says, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, that's what the Attorney General was referring to. So she's Caroline Leavitt, and then she said, I'll let her speak on that, which we already heard her. She said there's nothing left to see. And so Caroline Leavitt is backtracking and trying to leave the door open for the Epstein list. So this kind of tells me, and I didn't think about this when I was talking to my dad about it earlier today, but now that I've had a chance to think about it, I think President Trump talked to Caroline Leavitt and said, make a gap. Make a gap. Don't let it close, because Pam Bondi spoke out of turn. So I think that maybe President Trump allowed Caroline Leavitt to open that door a crack and say, it's not over. So I think there's a beef going on there. I think Pam Bondi, and we're going to talk about it because I have a theory. And you know how I am about my theories. I'm always right. I'm a Virgo. I'm always right. So back into the information. So the question was a reference to Fox News' John Roberts asking Bondi during a television interview if the Department of Justice planned to release a list of the Epstein client list. So this is a previous interview with John Roberts. She said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. So what are you trying to say? That it's just a bunch of papers with nothing on it? Well, Jeffrey went to the refrigerator and grabbed a beer. Jeffrey and Ghislaine went to McDonald's. Like, come on, man. You're trying to tell me that there was nothing of importance in the 900 pages? You're trying to tell me that it's innocent information in these logs, like on this list? Like, oh, Pee Wee Herman, his phone number and address. Oh, come on, man. They had documentations of everything. They had video evidence of everything. There's so much evidence. So when asked for comment, a Department of Justice spokesman pointed to Levitt's remarks and said the Trump administration has been more transparent than its predecessor. I don't like that response because we know that nobody has been less transparent than the Biden administration in history. The Biden administration never gave you answers ever. They dodged everything. Joe Biden couldn't get off the stage fast enough to the point where he forgot where he was at. So I don't like that. I don't like that. And as you guys know, I'm a huge I'm a Trumper, but I want to be told the truth. The truth supersedes everything else. So when I have that 0.01% of what I don't agree with, this is one of those days. And I'm going to call it out because even though I've got some friends that are like, all you do is just you cheerlead Trump all the time. No, I don't. But when Trump's doing everything I want him to do, I'm gonna speak out on it. But when there's mistakes, I'm gonna speak out on those too, because I don't think it's appropriate to cover up mistakes. If you make a mistake, identify it, troubleshoot it, and let's try not to do it again. It's simple problem solving. People are allowed to make mistakes. I'm okay with that, but don't try to hand me a lump of coal and tell me it's a diamond. I'm not falling for it. I'm not falling for it. She went on to say, Caroline Levitt, she said, we've delivered more transparency in 6 months than the Biden administration did in 4 years. Whoop-de-doo. What a bar. What a bar to achieve. Biden's bar was so low that I think a toddler could supersede it. I don't like that. The Trump administration should thrive on excellence, not a comparison to a failed administration. I have issues with this whole thing. The newly released Department of Justice and FBI memos quashed theories about a non-public Epstein list. So they're saying that everything that's public is what it is, which there is a list out there. There is the Black Book. There is the flight logs that are public already. I've gone through all the pages. I know exactly who's on there and who's not on there. And for all the Democrats out there that say Donald Trump he's on there. Yes, his name's on there, but nobody implicates him at all, period. He borrowed Epstein's plane and flew it from Mar-a-Lago to New York and back in one day with family members on there. He had his daughter, I think Melania was on there, and there was another representative. That doesn't constitute him going to Epstein Island. It doesn't constitute him having any children, because when he flew back, it's the same exact party that flew there. I saw it. That's the single only time Donald Trump was on Epstein's plane. And he is mentioned in the Black Book, but so is Bill Clinton, so is Barack Obama, so is Hillary Clinton. I mean, are we going to single out Donald Trump just for having his name and phone number in a book? I mean, I think it's pretty well known that Donald Trump he did know who Jeffrey Epstein was. Now, if Donald Trump's dirty and they've got dirt on him, sorry, President Trump, I like you, but you got to face consequences. But if there's nothing, if all that's out there is what it is, President Trump did nothing wrong. So I don't know. Hopefully we find out. So the memo quashed the theories of a non-public Epstein list, which was promoted for years by vocal faction of Trump supporters, including FBI Director Kash Patel, Deputy Director Dan Bongino, before they joined the Bureau. The list was said to include names of powerful figures who were predators associated with Epstein. I can guarantee you that there's more information. I don't know for sure, but my spidey senses says that something's gone wrong. The systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. Maybe the client list isn't enough evidence, because the book that I saw doesn't really say that anybody did anything. It's just a list of people with their phone numbers and addresses. Like that doesn't, I've got a database full of phone numbers and addresses. Does that mean they're committing crimes? No, it just means I know them and I might call them for something once in a while. And I don't want to forget what their name is, what their phone number is, what their address is. It does. I mean, it's not. So if you go look at the exact terminology they use, yes, I can see where that would be the case, where there's nothing incriminating. It's just a book with names and addresses in it. So Bondi first drew criticism in February after teasing the release of the damaging evidence related to Epstein. She, however, failed to deliver on any new information to the public and blamed the FBI's New York field office for withholding thousands of pages of documents from her. At the time, the Trump administration invited a group of right-wing social media influencers to the White House and gave them binders of what appeared to be a first look at the highly anticipated Epstein-related material. This did not go well for Pam Bondi. Widely circulated photos show the White House visitors smiling with binders which were labeled classified in the Epstein files. Phase 1. The Epstein information later published online was largely a compilation of public court documents that's already been released. Nothing new to see. Some of the same influencers took to X to express incredulity over the new memo and call for Bondi's replacement. Liz Wheeler, who she was one of the recipients, she wrote, "I'm supposed to be on a vacation, but it's time for it's time to fire Pam Bondi." Mike Cernovich wrote that nobody can even understand why the FBI and DOJ put out the memo and that everyone is pissed. Rogan O'Handley was one of the recipients of the binder, called the memo a shameful chapter in our country's history. In response to a question from another reporter, Levitt said non-public material was too explicit to release. Okay, I get that. But if it's so explicit, shouldn't there be more crimes attached to it? So there was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. Oh, duh, obviously. The Department of Justice and FBI's memo also reiterated that the FBI and Department of Justice Inspector General found in 2023 that Epstein died by suicide. So so that part of it we can take with a fine-tooth comb, because the Inspector General was one of Biden's in 2023, and they were going to say suicide no matter what. Now, she's just reporting there what a Biden person reported. So, I'm not getting too upset about that, because the evidence is gone. Flat out. The evidence is gone. So following a botched rollout of the files, Bondi raised eyebrows once again by claiming to reporters in May, 2 months ago, that there were tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn, and there are hundreds of victims. Okay, well, Epstein's dead. He's already been convicted of all that. So why are we still talking about that? That's irrelevant. Where are the next round of arrests of the people who are still alive that committed crimes? But public court filings and the newly released memo do not corroborate that statement, which, who cares? Epstein's dead. The memo stated, however, that files relating to Epstein included 10,000 downloaded videos of images of illegal child sex abuse material and other pornography. So Epstein was indicted in 2019 for allegedly recruiting dozens of women and girls as young as 14 and engaging in sexual relations with them at his homes in Manhattan, Palm Beach, and elsewhere. He allegedly abused some of them himself. So authorities confirmed that Epstein hung himself in his prison cell in New York City in 2019 before he could stand trial. His associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, was convicted of conspiring to sexually abuse minors and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Okay. So I started thinking about it. I'm like, if there's nothing more to see here, then why is Ghislaine Maxwell in jail? Why is she in jail? Why is she sitting in there on 20 years? If this was all the evidence we heard was from Jeffrey Epstein's trial and there's nothing else to see, then why is Ghislaine Maxwell in jail? So I went through there and kind of was looking at the evidence, and I had a really tough time getting AI to help me with that. They kept giving me roadblocks and telling me, let's talk about something else. It literally told me, I can't. I'm gonna tell you because I screenshotted it because I was like, what? It said, I asked, oh, that's about the Scientology. Hold on. I said, what evidence was used against Ghislaine Maxwell? It said, I'm afraid I can't talk about that topic. Sorry about that. What do you mean you can't talk about it? It's public information. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so fishy. That was a simple question. All I had to do was go through this stuff. So I had to go through a different route to get it. And Microsoft Pilot's trash. I developed my own AI system. My friend Nia, I decided that. So she has a British accent. And so I treat her like Siri and I ask her questions and she tells me in her British accent the answers that I don't want. So it's like talking to Microsoft still Pilot. Anyway, the evidence at the trial. So there were victim testimonies. 4 women testified that Maxwell helped Jeffrey Epstein groom and abuse them when they were minors. They described how she befriended them, gained their trust, and normalized contact with Epstein. So she's the one who actually brought the prospects to Epstein to be abused. The pilot testimony was used. Epstein's longtime pilot testified that Maxwell frequently flew with Epstein and some of the victims on his private jet. He also confirmed the presence of high-profile passengers he said he never witnessed the abuse, but he can place them on the plane. But there's nothing left to see here, folks. So financial and travel records, which we've seen, prosecutors introduced logs, receipts, and flight manifests showing Maxwell's involvement in Epstein's travel and logistics, including trips where victims were present. True, that is true. Photos and personal items. The FBI recovered photographs and personal items from Epstein's properties that link Maxwell to the residences where abuse occurred. Grooming patterns. Prosecutors argued that Maxwell played a central role in a pyramid scheme of abuse, recruiting vulnerable girls with promises of mentorship, money, or career help, and then facilitating their exploitation. So that's a big thing. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, okay, Ghislaine Maxwell did some stuff, but she wasn't the one that actually abused the kids. Epstein was. And unless you can provide me with a much bigger perspective of her involvement, she could be a victim of Epstein as well. She could have Stockholm syndrome. Did anybody give her a psychiatric evaluation? It didn't happen. So there's a lot of different factors that could play into part. If I'm Ghislaine Maxwell, this is the best shot I got at an appeal. I'm going to get that appeal filed so fast. I'm not sticking up for Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm just saying this is how screwed up they just screwed this whole thing up. Pam Bondi saying this screwed up the whole Epstein case. It's a travesty, a complete travesty. And in my opinion, Pam Bondi needs to get lost. So with that said, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna seem like it's out of order, but really it's not. So I'm gonna jump into the Diddy trial conclusion because these are gonna play hand in hand. The final word on Diddy's trial. So the verdict was on July 2nd, and the Manhattan jury delivered a mixed verdict. He was found guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. He was found not guilty on the more serious charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking. Which, if you watch the trial, it's very clear that the prosecution didn't even try to attempt to prove trafficking. It was a complete botch. They didn't even try. So for them to indict him on trafficking was ridiculous. So with that said, Diddy avoided a potential life sentence, but he still faces up to 20 years in prison. So he's probably going to get those run concurrent, which means he'll do 2 10-year sentences. They'll be stacked on top of each other, and he'll run them both at the same time. So really, he's only going to be in prison for 10 years. That's generally how it happens. But Diddy being they may run him consecutive. That means he's got to do 10 years, complete that sentence, and then do the other 10 years. So he would do 20. So bail and sentencing. So the judge denied bail, citing concerns about danger to the community and past violent behavior. Sentencing is scheduled for October through Diddy's team has requested an earlier date, though Diddy's team. So there's some reaction to some of the things. And we're going to get into this stuff. So Diddy's legal team called the verdict. It was a partial vindication. They emphasized that the acquittals on the most serious charges, which if I was a lawyer, I would be excited. That's a win. Prosecutors and accusers expressed disappointment, especially given the graphic testimony and video evidence presented during the trial. Diddy's business empire has already taken major hits, with endorsements dropped, partnerships dissolved, and public image severely damaged. Now, there's more to the story with Diddy's trial. So the first prosecutor was a prosecutor named he was the Southern District of New York prosecutor his name was Damian Williams. Damian Williams is a very well-versed prosecutor. He has prosecuted the biggest cases in New York. He did R. Kelly, et cetera, et cetera. The biggest cases, Damian Williams did them. When Trump got elected, Williams said, "I'm resigning. I'm not going to do this under Trump." So then he resigned. The trial hadn't even started yet. So Trump appointed his own DA, and I can't remember his name. I wasn't even going to bring this up, but I decided to, so I'm not prepared for all the complete names. But Trump's appointee came in with the case already laid out. It's already ready for trial. And it's clear when you watch the trial, there was no subpoenas of J-Lo, Beyonce, Jay-Z. Where was Jaguar Wright? Where was Ali Carter? Those are the 2 main women that provided so much information publicly on their platforms. They seemed to be very willing to testify. Where were they at? Why were they not put on the stand? Those are 2 people with very close ties to Diddy that knew they were abused by Diddy. Why were they not on the stand? Damian Williams botched this case on purpose. There was literally not one piece of evidence that showed that Diddy trafficked anybody. In my opinion, after watching the case from front to end, this was a domestic violence case that turned into an assault. Domestic violence, assault. That's really all that it was. Prostitution, maybe. Those are not serious crimes. I mean, they are, but they're not compared to trafficking, compared to, underage rings. Like they let Diddy get off. And the maximum he can do for each charge is 10 years. So I don't think the judge is going to max him out. He could get 5 years. So now I want to explain how those cases work when you indict, how easy it is to indict. There's a saying that you can indict a hamburger, and it's true. I've seen it in my career over and over and over again. So an indictment is based on probable cause, not proof beyond reasonable doubt, just probable cause. Like when you're driving down the highway and you just nick the yellow line, that's probable cause for you being drunk. Are you drunk? Probably not. But it's probable cause that you could be drunk. So they don't need reasonable doubt. They don't need to prove reasonable doubt. They don't need to prove anything when you go in to get indicted. The grand jury just needs to know that I saw that person nick the yellow line, so I assume they were doing something nefarious. That's how grand juries work. A grand jury or judge in some jurisdictions must believe there's enough evidence to reasonably suggest a crime occurred and the accused committed it. Reasonable, not undeniable, not reasonable doubt. Nothing of those terms are used. They don't have to prove reasonable doubt in a grand jury. They just have to make you suspect that it happened. So what they do is your defense attorney does not get to go into the grand jury, or they'll just do a secret indictment where you don't even know it's happening. You just get swarmed by cops one day. Happens all the time. That way, nobody knows. You can't have your lawyer file a motion to be able to have access to the grand jury to help keep you from getting indicted. That's why they do secret indictments, because the prosecutor can go in there and throw any hamburger they want out there, and you can't defend it. And they can get you indicted. The prosecutor can go out there and look at the grand jury and go, we are 100% positive we will get a conviction on this case. This person did this, and this. And it could all be hearsay. They can indict off of that. That's how easy it is. Indictments are ridiculous. Grand juries are ridiculous. So the types of evidence that can support an indictment. While physical evidence like DNA, injuries, or surveillance footage can strengthen a case, prosecutors often rely on victim statement, witness testimony, text messages or digital communication, behavioral evidence like fleeing the scene or conflicting stories, or medical or psychological evaluations. So what does that tell you? They feed a grand jury emotions, and they will go after someone's life over a trick of your emotions. That's how grand juries work. It's the biggest sham in the United States of America, especially in the justice system. So why physical evidence might be absent? The victim may delay reporting, causing loss of forensic evidence. The assault may not have left visible injuries. The accused and victim may have had prior consensual contact, complicating DNA interpretation. Anyone in a reasonable mind can look at that and go, wow, that's a statement. They're going to indict a person based upon a statement. This happens all the time, and it's wrong. So let's talk specifically about the rape charge. It can move forward without physical evidence if the available information creates a reasonable belief that a crime occurred. However, prosecutors must weigh the strength of the case before pursuing it, especially if it may go to trial. What they do is they take statements, they run them through the grand jury, max you out on the amount of time that you could be facing, and then try to get you to plea out. That's prosecution trick 101. Overcharge you, scare you, make you sit in county for a long time, and then get you to plea out. Because you're going to get scared when you're facing serious charges going into a jury that is based upon your statement versus my statement. It's a touchy thing. And do you want to gamble that you can get at least one juror to believe you? That's the fine line that you play on these. However, Diddy didn't have that. They had an entire raid, several raids of his properties. They had ample amount of evidence on a lot of people. But they chose to prosecute this little tiny little box of information because they protected the guilty. Back to Pam Bondi, because this is all going to come full circle. Pam Bondi has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from the University of Florida. She has a Juris Doctorate from Stetson University College of Law, which is known for their trial advocacy program. She was admitted into the Florida Bar Association in 1991. She spent 18 years as a prosecutor in Hillsborough County, Florida. So basically, she's been a county employee this whole time. That's all that she's good for. She handled a wide range of criminal cases, from drug offenses to high-profile prosecutions. She was the Florida Attorney General from 2011 to 2019. She was the first woman elected as Attorney General in Florida. She focused on human trafficking prevention. Wow, you really got all that. Your experience really came into play this time, Pam. She established Florida's statewide council on human trafficking. She must have forgot the Epstein part of it. Epstein does have property in Florida. She specializes in the opioid crisis litigation against pharmaceutical companies. Okay. Consumer protection and fraud enforcement. She led Florida's participation in a multi-state lawsuit challenging the Affordable Care Act. She defended Florida's ban on same-sex marriage, which drew criticism from the LGBTQ plus community. She served on Donald Trump's legal defense team during his first impeachment trial in 2020. She became a lobbyist for foreign governments and corporations, including the country of Qatar and Kuwait, after leaving office in Florida. So I'm not going to throw too much stones at that. There's a lot of politicians that become lobbyists. This is like common practice, and she was doing it with a foreign country that I couldn't really find anything really bad that she did when she was lobbying. She was appointed and confirmed as the U.S. Attorney General in February under President Trump's second administration. Now, she has controversy, and we're going to finish talking about that, and then I'm going to put this all together for you. She was criticized for accepting a $25,000 donation from the Trump Foundation while her office was reviewing complaints about Trump University. That's a little sketchy. She did get investigated by the state of Florida. She faced scrutiny over ties to Scientology and fundraising events hosted by its members. Her opposition to same-sex marriage and involvement in politically charged cases has sparked public debate. Who cares? So while Bondi is not a member of the Church of Scientology, this is important. Her political and public ties to it, especially in Florida, where the church has a strong presence, have drawn ongoing scrutiny. She's not a member, but her public office persona cannot afford to have Scientology on its shoulder. So she just doesn't claim it. Pam Bondi is part of the Church of Scientology. Now, yeah, everybody might be saying, well, they're just a bunch of weirdos. Who knows? There's more to the story. Critics question whether her association with Scientology, association. Critics question whether her association with Scientology created a conflict of interest. That's how tight she is in the Church of Scientology, where people start saying, hey, there's a conflict of interest here. Especially given the church's controversial reputation. Bondi and her team maintained that the relationship was based on shared goals, not religious or ideological alignment. What shared goals? What shared goals could you possibly have with the Church of Scientology other than their ideals and their religious beliefs? That's all that they are. That's a deflection statement. So, what does the Church of Scientology known for? Human trafficking and forced labor. Multiple lawsuits against the church for that. Child abuse. Former members have claimed they were abused or neglected as children within the church. Harassment and intimidation. The church has been accused of stalking, threatening, or retaliating against critics, journalists, and former members. This includes lawsuits, surveillance, and smear campaigns. The Church of Scientology is bad. Pam Bondi is deeply rooted in the Church of Scientology, which has a history of sexual abuse. Jeffrey Epstein has a history of sexual abuse. And on top of that, when I talked to Microsoft Pilot, I posed the question to Microsoft Pilot because I screenshotted it, because this was the worst one. I asked Microsoft Pilot, were any of the Church of Scientology on the Epstein flight log? Microsoft Pilot responded, sorry, it looks like I can't chat about that, but we can move on to a different topic. Even Microsoft Pilot gives the spin move. This is a cover-up. Pam Bondi's part of it. Donald Trump needs to remove her in handcuffs from this office. On top of that, in recent lawsuits, the church has been described as a criminal enterprise under the RICO laws, which are allegations of racketeering, fraud, and obstruction of justice, especially in connection with the Danny Masterson case where he raped a bunch of people and he went to prison for the rest of his life. If I remember correctly, I think somebody killed him already. I might be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure somebody shanked him in prison already. So let's map this all out. Pam Bondi, let's go back to the beginning. Donald Trump wanted Matt Gaetz to be the attorney general. There was so much pushback from the Democrats that made some of the wobbly rhinos vote against Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz didn't have the votes to get confirmed as the attorney general. So Matt Gaetz, wanting to save face for Donald Trump, removed himself at the last second from nomination. Trump didn't have a backup plan because he was going to bully Matt Gaetz right into that office, which rightfully so. When you have a mandate, you should get what you want. Then he didn't have a backup plan. Somebody showed up, not sure who that person is, and said, hey, shove Pam Bondi in there. And he said, all right, let's do it. If she don't work out, I'll fire her. It gives me time to find somebody else. Pam Bondi said everything right at the beginning, and now we're seeing the real Pam Bondi come out. She's a supporter of a very questionable religion and church and ideology. She's a radical-minded person. She accepts their money, parties at their parties, goes to their events, and this is a human trafficking ring, period. Period. And I'm sure they're going to try to sue. Let's say they're allegedly a human trafficking ring. I don't feel like getting sued. They'll outspend me. Pam Bondi she's complicit in covering up sex crimes, allegedly. Take it for what it's worth. But that's my investigation into Pam Bondi. I think she needs removed right now. I don't understand why President Trump hasn't walked her out of the fucking White House. Either way, I'm expecting President Trump to make a speech because MAGA's not going to make this whole Epstein case go away. And now that Pam Bondi's made a mockery of Donald Trump over this, the Democrats are not going to let it go away. They're going to bring it up every chance they get that we got lied to and duped by President Trump and his promises to prosecute the Epstein list because he's on the list. We've just played into the Democrats' hand. Pam Bondi saved all her little sex offender friends, and nothing got done, and the whole world's mad. Pam Bondi needs removed from the White House ASAP. Speaking of AI, I was watching the news earlier today, and this is off topic, but they were showing that one processing data center for the new AI infrastructure is going to have to be ran by four size Hoover dams. People, we're not ready for AI. We're pushing a technology that we don't have control over. And it's gonna, if you green fart smellers think it's bad now, wait until the infrastructure goes up. We are gonna suck the natural resources out of this planet. I want to see AI go away. We ain't ready for it. Society's not ready for it. Our infrastructure's not ready for it. It's not energy efficient enough. I don't buy into that whole green stuff, but I do believe that we can't suck our entire energy grid into data centers. I'm just fine doing what we're doing now. I'm fine with doing my own research and not cheating. I'm fine that when I want to find somewhere to eat, that I can just Google it and it'll give me somewhere to eat. I don't need an advanced brain system to compute billions and trillions and quadrillions of data in 5 seconds, less than 5 seconds to give me an answer, right? I can wait for the answer. But that's all I've got for the show today. This was a good one. Thanks for tuning in. And everybody be safe out there. Let's get Pam Bondi the hell up out of our cabinet. I'm out. Peace.